In Colorado's House District 36, something really fascinating is happening. There's a Democratic primary that's way more than just another election. It's really a battle for what the party's future is going to look like. You've got an incumbent who calls himself a progressive problem solver, and he's up against a challenger who proudly calls herself a communist. So this race is forcing voters to ask a huge question. Is the system just broken and needs a few fixes, or is it actually working exactly the way it was designed to and needs to be completely replaced? Let's get into it. So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll meet the two candidates at the center of it all. Then, we'll dive deep into their totally different ideas on the housing crisis. After that, we'll look at their visions for labor and justice, and you'll see just how far apart they are. We'll also unpack a big ethics scandal that's become a major issue in the race. And finally, we'll look at the two very, very different paths this election could take Colorado down. All right, first up, let's get to know the two people at the heart of this political showdown in Aurora. Okay, so on one side, you have Michael Carter. He's the incumbent. He's a former defense attorney. He's been on the school board. And his whole brand is being a proven leader, progressive problem solver. He's all about making steady, incremental change from within the legislature. And then on the other side, you've got Brianna Parsons. She's a community organizer and an activist. And she's not just running a different kind of campaign, she's running on a completely different ideology. She openly identifies as a communist, and her core argument is that the entire system doesn't need to be reformed, it needs to be replaced. Now let's turn to the issue that is absolutely huge in Aurora, and frankly all over Colorado, housing. And on this topic, the candidates aren't just offering different policies, they're talking about entirely different worlds. To really get a sense of how serious this crisis is, just look at this number from Parsons' campaign. Nearly 20,000 families in Aurora are what's called cost-burdened. That means they're spending more than a third of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. I mean, this isn't just some abstract policy debate. For thousands of people, this is about basic survival. And wow, this slide right here really captures their totally opposite philosophies. Carter's approach is all about working within the system as it is. Tweaking zoning laws, expanding programs for home buyers, making sure existing tenant protections are actually enforced. Parsons, on the other hand, wants to tear that system down. Her top priorities, which her campaign site marks with a hammer and sickle, are way more radical. We're talking a guaranteed right to a lawyer in every single eviction case and creating a way for tenants to literally take over properties from landlords she calls slumlords. And her long-term vision? It goes even farther, calling for publicly owned social housing and a cap on anyone owning more than 2 homes. This quote from Parsons' website gets right to the heart of her entire platform. To her, high rent isn't some accident or a bug in the system, it's a feature. She sees the problem not as a market failure, but as, in her words, the greed of capitalism. And that framing is so important because it explains why she's pushing for a revolution, not just reform. And this massive ideological divide, it carries right on over into how they view labor in the justice system. Again, the choice is between reforming the structures we have or just tearing them all down. It's not every day you see a candidate for state office quoting Vladimir Lenin on their campaign website. But Parsons does, and this isn't just for shock value. It's a really clear statement of her core belief that capitalism is a system literally designed to crush workers. Every single one of her labor policies is built on that foundation. Carter's plan, in stark contrast, is about using the system we have to give workers more power. He's talking about strengthening unions, raising the minimum wage, and investing in job training programs. It's a progressive vision for sure, but it's about shifting the balance of power within capitalism, not getting rid of the system itself. And it's the exact same pattern when it comes to criminal justice. As a former defense attorney, Carter is pushing for some major reforms, like ending private prisons and using social workers to handle mental health calls. But Parsons is calling for abolition. Her platform includes defunding of the police as they currently stand, completely abolishing ICE, and releasing all detainees who she controversially refers to as political hostages. Okay, now let's turn to a scandal that has really become a weapon in this campaign, the whole controversy around the Opportunity Caucus. So what exactly is the Opportunity Caucus? Well, according to the Parsons campaign, it's a story all about dark money and special access for lobbyists, with her opponent, Michael Carter, playing a pretty central role. So here's the rundown based on what the Parsons campaign is saying and what's been reported in places like the Colorado Sun. Basically, ethics complaints were filed against Carter and a bunch of other Democrats over this fancy retreat with lobbyists in Vail. And the event was allegedly paid for by a dark money group that has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to support these same candidates. This whole thing has had real fallout, too, including the founding chair of the caucus resigning. Now, for his part, Carter has maintained that the whole event was just for policy discussions and that no rules were broken. Parsons' campaign is pointing to headlines just like this one to make their case. They argue that this is definitive proof that Carter is part of a Democratic establishment that's in the pocket of special interests. And for them, it's a clear reason why her campaign is pledging to refuse all corporate donations. So what does this all add up to? Well, when voters in this district head to the polls, their choice isn't just between two people. It's between two completely different blueprints for the future. Michael Carter is offering the path of progressive reform. His whole problem-solver approach is about using the tools of government as they exist right now to try and make the system fairer, to make it more effective. His goal is to fix the machine, not to smash it. And then you have Breanna Parsons, who is offering the path of revolution. Her stated goal, in her own words, is to crush the bureaucratic machinery of the state. She believes that problems like housing insecurity and worker exploitation aren't problems with capitalism, they are capitalism. And from her point of view, the only real solution is to replace the entire system. So the choice really couldn't be any more stark: a pragmatic problem solver versus a communist revolutionary. This primary is so much more than just a local election. It's really a referendum on the future of the Democratic Party in Colorado, and it's a test of just how far left its voters are truly willing to go.